Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon from Singapore. I am Lauren Sorkin. I am the Executive Director of the Resilient Cities Network. Thank you all for being here on our virtual launch and for our panel and networking event today. Before we get started, I would like to share a short video about the work we're doing to set the stage for our discussion. For the next 1 minute, we'll share why we work with cities around the world to build resilience. So as you can see from the video, each day we work arm in arm with cities because we're committed to helping cities work with partners here in Singapore and around the world. Really, bringing together partners and expertise in cities to advance resilience is what we do best. Ordinarily, we would have liked to welcome all of you to our offices, to meet face-to-face and to design programs together. But with COVID-19 as an ongoing challenge for all of us, we are finding new ways to follow sensible health precautions while fostering the kind of connections that lead to transformative outcomes for cities. So as we kick off our meeting, I want to share a roadmap for our journey over the next hour and a half and share a few ground rules with all of you on the line. We will be hearing first from a member of our steering committee from Europe, and then we'll be hearing from several of our strategic partners in the region. During this presentation, we would love to have you introduce yourself on the chat and say who's on the line. And also, if you have questions, you can post them in the Q&A function, and I will be fielding those and sharing them with the panelists during the latter part of the conversation. Finally, I want to remind everyone that at 4:30, we're going to be breaking out into 3 networking groups, so don't hang up. And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Dino Tan, who is the Vice President for International Organizations and Programs from the Singapore Economic Development Board, to share some opening thoughts. Dino?
Thank you, Lauren, for inviting me to the official launch of the Resilient Cities Network's global headquarters in Singapore. It's great to be here today with all of you amidst the unusual circumstances we're all facing due to COVID-19. So many of you may be familiar with the growth of the RCN. Started by the Rockefeller Foundation, the original 100 RC network was established in 2013. Since then, the network has grown to become a leading global city-led platform, supporting more than 90 cities in urban resilience strategies. And actually, Singapore ourselves have benefited greatly from participating in the network since 2014. Through this platform, we have shared our resilience experiences in areas such as smart cities and urban design with over 50 other cities. And also, we've jointly launched our Singapore Resilience Strategy with 100RC at the World City Summit back in 2018. So today marks a new milestone in our partnership. The establishment of RCN's global HQ in Singapore is testament to our standing as a hub for sustainable urban practices and solution. This is significant as it is the first global cities network to be headquartered in Asia. We all know that Asia is urbanizing rapidly. The UN estimates that 54% of world's urban population lives in Asia, and this number is expected to grow very quickly. To achieve sustainable and resilient urban growth, Asia will need to develop and deploy ideas, talent, and innovation in urban management. There's also a need to develop strong connection between cities and public and private partners. So we believe Singapore will be a good base for RCN to grow these regional connections and build the necessary capabilities, practices, and solutions that cater to the needs of the Asian market. RCN can also leverage Singapore's connectivity to the world to attract financing partners and solution providers to co-create solutions for the region from Singapore. As a small economy, Singapore has always sought to add value to the global flows of capital, technology, know-how, goods, services, and people. We strive to be the critical and regional and global node in connecting the world with Asia and Asia with the rest of the world. So I'm glad that Singapore will play an important role in RCN's efforts to match solution providers and financing services to ready projects. To fulfill the high cost of infrastructure projects, cities will need to attract private sector capital as an alternative or supplementary source of funding. I'm personally confident RCN Global Headquarters will enable Singapore to partner businesses in developing and deploying investable solutions for Asia. This is critical as many cities are still facing challenges in securing private sector capital for infrastructure projects. So here I would like to congratulate the RCN on the establishment of their global headquarters in Singapore. And just to highlight, this is just the beginning of the partnership between Singapore and RCN. So I wish Lauren and all our friends at RCN every success in your journey ahead, and EDB will stand alongside you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dino. We're incredibly grateful for EDB's support, and we are looking forward to a long and meaningful partnership with you here in Singapore. On that note, I would like to turn the screen and the microphone over to someone who's been an incredible thought partner in this journey of transforming the Resilient Cities Network. And that is Ms. Grania Long, who is the Commissioner for Resilience from the City of Belfast, and also the co-chair of our Global Steering Committee of Cities. Grania, over to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Hello, I am really pleased to be here today and to be part of this launch. It's incredibly important to me personally and to the Global Steering Committee that we start to see with our strategic partners and with our city partners such a focus now on the network and our future. So I'll just start by telling you a little bit about me and my role. I'm like every other commissioner or chief resilience officer working globally. My role essentially is to work at a city level. I sit within the city government, but everything I do through partnership, working with city partners to identify strategic risks for our city and to plan forward. And I'll use the word partnership a lot, and I suspect it will happen over the course of our discussion, because I can do nothing without the partners that I collaborate with. And that's one of the lessons I've learned as a Commissioner for Resilience, working in the UK and working across Europe and with partners in Europe and the Middle East and more globally. I'm thrilled to be co-chair of the Global Steering Committee for RCN. I'm also thrilled that the organisation is increasingly a city-led network, and many of you will no doubt want to touch on that this afternoon. We are a global network, and increasingly a global network, and the leading network of cities focused on urban resilience. And I say this quite a lot, but there's never been a better time for a network of cities now focused on urban resilience and with real clarity on what urban resilience is and what its impact is and what its impact can be. Our membership now includes nearly 100 cities globally, and it includes cities such as Seoul and Chennai in Asia Pacific, New York and Houston in North America, my own city of Belfast and partner city Rotterdam in Europe and the Middle East, Cape Town and Accra in Africa, Buenos Aires and Mexico City in Latin America. So it's a real pleasure for me in my role to be able to get to know and partner with and befriend my colleagues globally and learning from each other and enabling that learning to turn into practice on the ground is fundamentally what this network is all about. Over the past year, we've been co-designing the next phase of our work, and we're transitioning, as I said, from a donor-funded program to a city-led network. That's a real significant shift. It's a strategic shift, and it creates a very different organization, a very different culture across the network, and one I think that will put us in a really strong position ourselves as an organization to be future-proofed and ready for the challenges that this decade will present us. It includes setting priorities for the organization through engagement with all the member cities, and as a city-led network, we take our steer from the direction from our member cities, and that's very important. We've just developed a new governance framework, which you would expect as a global organization. It's critically important that we are well run and that there's confidence and trust in our organization and how we work. So we have a global steering committee, which I co-chair, and that's comprised of chief resilience officers from each region globally. And I'm thrilled that we have a new board of directors that's chaired by the Mayor of Houston, and it includes Naina Batra, who's the CEO of the Asian Venture Philanthropy Network. And Naina is taking part and is listening in on this session. So welcome and hi to Naina, and thanks again for the incredible work that the board of directors is taking forward. As I said, over the past year, we've been in change mode, and the RCN has been set up as a new organization. As has been mentioned, I'm thrilled we're now headquartered in Singapore, and we also have offices in New York, in Mexico City, and in London. So as co-chair of the Global Steering Committee and on behalf of the network cities, I want to thank very genuinely the Centre for Livable Cities, who've been a fantastic partner for us, and the Economic Development Board of Singapore, who worked so closely with Lauren and the team to set up the RCN's headquarters in Singapore. So a really warm thank you, Dino and Mr. Koo. As I said, this network is a partnership, and we couldn't do this without you and your guidance. So we're really, really grateful for that. We have a mission that we're very proud of, which is to reduce the vulnerability and improve the well-being of over 220 million urban dwellers around the world. And that's quite an audacious mission, as you would expect, but we're also very focused. And our focus is on continuing to build capacity and scale best practice within and across cities, mobilizing investments, that critical point that's already been made to build resilience, and advocating for resilience and the principles and practice of resilience, and sharing stories with cities globally. And I often say that we're ruthlessly focused, and I don't apologize for that, in delivering impact in our 3 priority themes, which you saw in the video: equitable, COVID-19 recovery, climate resilience, and the circular economy. So just to finish, as I said, no doubt we will cover the issue of partnerships and collaboration, and it's so critical to our important work. In Belfast, in my city, a city with major challenges on water resilience and energy and climate adaptation, I co-chair a board that sits with city partners across the city, looking at and finding solutions for those big city challenges. And no doubt many of you are doing that within and across your cities too. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more and hearing from our panelists. I'm thrilled to see so many partners who are working with RCN to promote urban resilience in the region, and I look forward to our discussion. And thank you again for having me with you today, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Grania, for those words. I will now be sharing a little bit of an introduction on how Resilient Cities Network is working. As Grania mentioned, we've just gone through a transformation from a donor-led program to a city-led program. And so I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk through what that means. I'm going to focus on the assets of the organization, so what we've been building on, and then where we're going. So Resilient Cities Network is helping cities around the world to build resilience, to build that ability to come back from not just environmental, but social and economic challenges of our century. We are city-led, regionally driven, partner-based, and focused on impact. And we are building on 10 years of investment from the Rockefeller Foundation. As you saw in the video, and it also reiterates here, we're active on 6 continents. We operate in 21 languages and in 47 countries around the world. So in order to operate in such a diverse number of cities and contexts, we have to share a common approach. And so we define resilience as the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, and businesses. So from the top down and from the bottom up, to survive, adapt, and grow, no matter what kind of acute shock, right? Like our sudden experiences of earthquake or chronic stresses like climate change or disease outbreak that we have to live with over the long term. How these shocks and stresses face us. No matter what we face, we have to be able to survive, adapt, and grow. Now, the Resilient Cities Network, next slide, please. The Resilient Cities Network builds on 6 years of investment from the Rockefeller Foundation. But what does that actually mean? What is that capacity that was built over 6 years during the 100 Resilient Cities program, which ended last year? There are 2 fantastic assets of the network, and that is our chief resilience officers, and you've just heard from Grania, who's working in the UK. Now you have chief resilience officers in each of the 97 member cities who have a top position in their government and who have been leading resilience work in their city over a number of years, some of them up to 6 years of building this agenda. And now that agenda is not a loosely formulated plan, it's actually a specific strategy. And so we have over 80 resilience strategies that prioritize 4,000 projects. You would have seen that number in the video. Those 4,000 projects come out of resilient city strategies. And those ideas, those concepts are now ready for investment. And in the words of my colleague Lenio Miravilli, the CRO and Deputy Mayor of Athens, cities are really invested in these strategies for the long term. And they have the opportunity to impact over 200 million people globally and to activate cities' annual budgets, right? And you see here, this is a number that is just from the cities in our network. This is just what they invest independently. This doesn't count what they mobilize in infrastructure from their national governments, from partners or others. So going on to the next slide. The other thing that makes the network a powerful asset is that cities have shared vulnerabilities, but they also have shared knowledge. And so there's an opportunity to make a difference in specific issue areas when cities work together. And you'll see here, and I think for those on the line from Asia and the Pacific, these lists of common shocks and common stresses will not come as a surprise. Rainfall, flooding, infrastructure failure, extreme heat, these are things we're living with today. And these overlaid with economic inequality and lack of access to affordable housing, these create serious resilience challenges when taken together. Next slide. So I want to conclude by talking about how we work with cities. How is it that we're going to use these assets to move forward? So we have 3 ways of working with cities. First, we empower cities. We foster and maintain this responsive global network through our city-led participatory governance structure that Grania mentioned. We organize peer-to-peer exchanges and collaboration, and chief resilience officers are constantly working together to exchange information and address these issues of climate change and equity. And we disseminate in real time best practices and solutions that support over 1,000 cities globally, particularly in the global South. Second, we implement programs. So we leverage both member city as well as key partner knowledge to address vulnerabilities. And you'll hear from some of those partners later this afternoon. We build capacity and prepare projects together so that we can accelerate resilience practice within our member cities, and also, coming to the last part, to mobilize investment. We know that cities cannot do this work alone. So we work both with the private sector and with multilaterals to mobilize investment to channel that into existing city priorities and projects. And finally, we have launched a Resilience Community Impact Fund that gives partners the ability to directly invest in grants with us that will help to increase community resilience on the ground. And so with that, I want to conclude so that we can move on to the panel and just share with you our last slide on our resilient cities. We are mobilizing for a safe and equitable world for over 220 million citizens. Now with that, I want to start us off on our panel. So I think we're going to remove the slides and we're going to come into a video view. I hope our panelists can show themselves on the video screen. So let me welcome our panel here today. So we have Mr. Ku-Teng Chai, who's the Executive Director from the Center for Livable Cities. We have Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, who is the Director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs from India. We have Yibin Chu, who's the Regional Head of Corporate Citizenship, Asia Pacific from Citi. We have Francis Gasquer, who is the Practice Manager, Urban Development and Disaster Risk Management from the World Bank. And we have Neil Walmsley, who's the Principal from the Singapore Planning Group of Arab. And so these speakers will be joining Grania and I on the panel now. So I'd like to open up the conversation first with a question for you, Mr. Ku, and that is, can you talk to us about the importance of resilience in Singapore's context and your experience working with the Resilient Cities Network over the last 4 years?
Thank you very much, Lauren, and it's really an honor to be invited to join this very esteemed group in this panel. Singapore, we are proud to be one of the 100 resilient cities in the Resilient Cities Network, which has over the years, I think, brought together a community of chief resilience officers who are passionate about their city's resilience and who have taken the lead in developing good policies, strategies, and programs, and have also shared and learned with each other through the initiatives of the 100 RC. And I think it is thanks to the amazing enterprise and energy of Lauren and her team, supported, I think, by the network of the chief resilience officers, that we're all here today to see the launch of the Resilience City Network, which I think will continue perhaps to a higher level, the work that the 100 RC has done so well. So congratulations to the team. As CLC and I think in Singapore, EDB, we are very pleased that we have had a part to play to create this new incarnation of resilient cities. And we are really very honored that it is headquartered in Singapore. Now, for Singapore, perhaps we are more keenly aware of the need to be resilient because we are an island city-state with limited land and resources. So we have faced existential threats like the lack of water, which we had to overcome sustainably, but also be resilient, to the short-term shocks, like Lauren said, like flooding and drought. So in water, we have achieved both resilience and sustainability by taking a systems approach that is based on good governance and an integrated approach to planning and execution. So let me cite the example of the Marina Barrage, which those of you who have been to Singapore or live in Singapore should be aware of. But for those who are not, it is really an iconic structure. What stands out on the Marina Barrage is that it is an iconic structure with a green roof, but it's really a tidal barrier that creates the Marina Bay, that is really the water body right in the heart of downtown Singapore. And it's also Singapore's 15th reservoir, right in the heart of the city. So taking an integrated approach means that what was originally designed, the Marina Barrage was originally designed to be a flood control barrier to solve the flooding problem in the city. But we also took the opportunity to turn it into a dam that creates a reservoir, to boost our water supply And it's also a beautiful recreational lake. Right in the heart of the city is a place for Singaporeans to enjoy. They have their weddings, picnics, they fly kites there. And the structure is actually just a bum house. And as Judith Rodin, who was the former president of Rockefeller Foundation, and a person who I guess really initiated the 100 Resilient Cities project, has kindly mentioned, the Marina Barrage in a way depicts the resilience dividend, where Singapore is able to reap benefits from investments in both times of calm and crisis. So the key message here is that you can be resilient if you are prepared and you plan ahead, and that investment will pay off huge dividends if you do it wisely. And we are currently, facing a huge crisis of COVID-19, which is not just a health care crisis, it's not just a global pandemic, but I think it has, as all of us know, severely impacted existentially, really, the lives and livelihoods of millions of people across the world. And the cities that have been more prepared and organized have so far been the ones that are more resilient. I think Singapore and cities which have experienced SARS and MERS earlier have been more prepared, although even then, COVID-19 has had a much more severe impact. For example, in Singapore, the spread in migrant dormitories was not something we expected, although it has now been contained through systematically tackling the issue in a whole of society or whole of city approach. So Singapore and other cities, we will continue to face other resilience challenges. So climate change is a universal challenge. Climate change will impact Singapore severely because we are a low-lying island city-state. So like the threat of water, this is an existential threat. We will face the rising sea levels. We will face extreme weather that will result in drought and flooding and rising temperature in an already hot and humid Singapore. So Singapore is tackling the issue with leadership by the Prime Minister himself, who explained the challenges and how we will approach the solutions holistically. We all learn and we will share with other cities. So we have been an active member of the 100 RC. We have published our resilience strategy, which is titled A Resilient Singapore. And that was launched at the World Cities Summit in Singapore in 2018. On climate resilience, we've discussed the issue at workshops with other cities, and we identified the need. We are no city is perfect, and so we've identified the need for Singapore to strengthen our social resilience in responding to climate change. So we consequently started a pilot project, and this was started before COVID-19, as shown in this slide here, in a place called Cambridge Road in Singapore, which has, which is kind of prone to flash flooding. And we worked with a small group of residents to build community resilience against climate change. So citizens learned about the impact of climate change, and they contributed ideas to help their neighborhood adapt. So by developing design interventions through crowdsourcing and regular conversation with stakeholders, their social network and their capacity to respond is strengthened. We started this before COVID, and throughout COVID, there was so much enthusiasm that they decided to continue to have weekly conversations on Zoom. So CLC is now working to document our strategies to mitigate and adapt to climate change. We have this series of case studies that we call Urban System Study, and we are going to launch the one on climate change of our experience very shortly. So they are like all our other USSs and most of our publications, they are all downloadable for free from our website. I think we have been working very closely with Lauren and her team on a number of projects and look forward to continuing the partnership with various programs like a capacity program that's supported by Temasek Foundation. And we also look forward to collaborating with the RCN at the World City Summit, which has been postponed from July this year. We were hoping to have a physical meeting, but it will now probably be a hybrid or virtual meeting in June 2021. And the theme of that World City Summit is very relevant. It is livable and sustainable cities adapting to a disrupted world. So with that, thank you. And I look forward to catching up with all of you, especially at the World City Summit. And congrats again And thank you to Lauren and your team.
Thank you so much, Mr. Koo. We are so happy to see the projects from the Resilient Singapore strategy coming to life. I would like to invite Hitesh, Director of NIUA, to now open your mic and share with us more about what's been going on at the National Institute of Urban Affairs, including your new Climate Change Center for Cities. And also if you could share with us some of the work that you've been doing with us at Resilient Cities.
Thank you very much, Lauren. And I'm also really honored to be part of this network. We were working very closely with you, and a lot of climate discourse which is happening at NIUA or at the country level is the support from the Urban Resilient Unit, which we had received a couple of years. So we are building on that. So first of all, thank you for all the support till now, and also looking forward for the great support moving ahead and taking these challenges. As you said, and I earlier made my comments, we have after the COVID, and I don't want to get into the issues of COVID, but after the COVID, there are three very clear directions which has come from the India leadership. And these things are make India self-sustainable, make vocal the local, and take India to 5 trillion economy. And we are trying to work within NIUA, being the think tank of Government of India on urban issues and working for last 4 decades. We are trying to see how these three big visions can be localized, how we can work with the cities to fructify these visions. And as NIUA being a think tank working on it, we have adopted a 5-pronged approach. And the 5-pronged approach is that we will work through different approaches. One is we will work with the cities to make them inclusive, more prosperous and inclusive with prosperity. And second is working with cities on improving urban governance issues, work with cities to service delivery, look at resilience and environmentally sustainability issues with them, collaborate and partnership with them. So these were the 5 areas where we will be working, and what are the tools and instruments, and how do we work with them? So idea is work with the projects and come up with the standards and scale, because even though we are working with different projects, which you had supported and other projects are supporting, our constituency is 4,000 urban local bodies. So we would like to go with creating frameworks at the NIUA level and provide tools and instruments to the urban local bodies to really address these challenges and reach this big vision statement. Work when, and I think Garena Long has already talked about, and we are also working same strategies, advocacy, knowledge, sharing, and building capacities at the local level. Work with the partners and collaborators and different agencies to see and create a same a narrative. And I think advocacy, that's going to be the main area where we will be supporting to mainstream climate action at the local level. And last, again, it was talked about is how do we share Indian cities practices, because I was yesterday in one of the workshop which talked about daring cities, and I think it's now Indian cities have started daring because its leadership has started daring, and that was really shown during the COVID, where we saw the cities, the way things were managed at the city level and city level. So the leadership has to be strengthened, their capacity has to be built so that they can start daring and start taking this climate action. So these are the areas where NIU has been working with the cities, and we, as you all aware, that we started with establishment of Urban Resilient Unit in 2018, where we launched 100 Resilient Cities program. And now we are moving from there, and we have compiled a lot of actions which we were doing with the under the climate action, and we have launched the Climate Center for Cities. It's called CQ within NIUA. And the idea is to develop climate smart city assessment framework, benchmark the cities, and create a roadmap for mainstreaming climate action. I think the collaboration with GRCN has, earlier has been a knowledge networking and engagement of urban lands with cities, partners, and range of other stakeholders. I think this is, we really look forward to activate the national secretariat. We are also coming up with climate alliance within the country, where we have around at least 25 national and international partners, solution providers who are on board as a member of alliance, and we are exploring synergies with other 20 or so the organization at the moment. So you talked about resident officers of 80, and we will be looking at working with these resident officers at the global level, so they can bring case studies and best practices from different areas to us. But I also suggest that they should not only look at government practices or city practices, but also look at multinationals, bilaterals, and others, and go out of the box thinking how we mainstream climate action. So with that, I really would like to leverage the network engagement for global positioning of India's efforts towards building climate action. And I strongly feel that India is the key towards achieving any sustainable, substantial gains on addressing climate change and SDG globally. Because if India can achieve SDGs, SDGs have success. And that has come very clearly from our earlier Avtara. If India fails, SDG fails. If India wins, SDG will win. So I look forward for great collaboration, great learning jointly, and taking this dialogue and making, with your support, taking the whole advocacy on mainstreaming climate action forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hitesh. I think, as you've highlighted very clearly, as India goes, many of our sustainability goals go, and that's so true when we look at urbanization rates. ASEAN plus India, what we are doing here has so much determination on what the future globally will be. And so we're very happy to be here in Singapore and close to you and the work you're doing in India. It's very clear that with setting up the Climate Change Center for Cities, you're creating a channel for solutions and methodologies that cities can use. I want to pick up on the theme of daring, because that's something you highlighted in your remarks around daring cities, and actually ask Yibin Chu from Citibank to speak to us. Increasingly, cities are looking to partner with the private sector as they work on sustainability and try to do more progressive projects. Can you tell us more about cities' priorities and what you see as opportunities for collaboration?
Sure, thanks, Lauren. It's my great honor to be here, and really congratulations to the launch of the network. And we are very proud to have the partnership with Global Resilient Cities Network, and I will touch it on it in a little bit. For Citi, we have a very long track record and the leadership in sustainability in the financial sector ever since we joined the UN Environmental Finance Initiative back in 1997. And as the world's most global bank, now our ambition is to be the world's leading bank in driving the transition to a low carbon economy. We believe the financial sector plays an important role by driving capital to where it can have the most positive impact. As we are talking about sustainability, climate action, and especially around the resilience in this kind of environment, I'm happy to share that actually three months ago, Citi just announced our new 2025 Sustainable Progress Strategy. There are mainly three key pillars of activity. First of all, we are setting a new 5-year, 250 billion environmental finance goal, which will focus on projects under, for example, circular economy, sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, clean technology, water quality conservation, sustainable transportation, green buildings, and so on. Through these projects, we are looking to develop innovative financing structures scaling positive impact and supporting our clients across all sectors in the low carbon transition. Second of the key activity under the strategy is, for the first time, city is going to measure, manage, and reduce the climate risk and the impact of cities' client portfolio. We have been a leader in climate assessment and disclosure in alignment with the TCFD recommendations, and we released our first TCFD report in 2018. With this new strategy, we are going to testing the resilience of our lending portfolio to transition risk and the physical risks related to climate change. And we are also going to begin measuring the climate impact of our own portfolios and the potential alignment with different global warming scenarios, like the 1.5 and the 2 Celsius. And the last key area of our new strategy focuses on our own sustainable operations. This includes the 4th generation operational footprint goals, focusing on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, energy, water, waste reduction, and also growing our sustainable building portfolio. And also I'm proud to share, in Asia, we are the first region within city that has met the goal of sourcing 100% renewable electricity to power our facilities. In addition to the core business activities, we also utilize our strategic philanthropy through City Foundation, grants investment, and also our city charitable contributions to create economic opportunities for underserved communities, and to really work with stakeholders like Global Resilient Cities Network, those the governments and the community stakeholders also to come up with those innovative solutions for community transformation. And we have an ongoing partnership with the Resilient Cities Network, which are supporting the municipal governments to better engage different sectors and build urban resilience solutions in partnership with the private sector. And specifically, this time working with those local businesses and the SME sector that have been more severely affected by COVID-19 pandemic in their cities. I think partnering with the Resilient Cities Network, and we were very happy to tap into the tremendous network of stakeholders and some of the best experts, and also the knowledge in the network, and some of the people who are working on the front line and working on some of the most critical resilient issues. I think the challenges for us are immense, and now we are all talking about COVID recovery, both from the economic side, the social side, and also the climate environment side as well. And we are also looking at how city can be part of this recovery process and contribute our efforts and joint efforts with the government's client and all the stakeholders to really push this forward. It's great to be here, and I really look forward to learning more from everyone and exchange the ideas.
Thank you so much, Eben. You were talking about knowledge exchange. And so the next person I would like to call on is my partner in knowledge proliferation, if I can call him that. And that is Francis Gasquer, who is the practice manager for urban development disaster risk management from the World Bank, who's been hosting the Cities on the Front Line series with me for the past more than half a year now. And Francis, as you look at resilience in the region, right, having been in this space for some time, how do you see priorities evolving? What is the World Bank focusing on in terms of resilience in the region? And what would you say having a city network here in Singapore could bring to those priorities?
Well, thank you, Lauren. It's a real pleasure to be here, and it's fantastic to see RCN really coming to life now and standing on its own feet and really ready to move forward. You had two questions basically. The first one is resilience in general, and I must say resilience at the World Bank has been a long time coming, right? Like in the entire development sector, it's something that people about 30, 40 years ago talked about disaster management, and then about 20 years ago started to realize maybe we should not deal with the disaster themselves, but the risk. And people talk about risk management, how to identify risk, reduce risk, transfer risk, retain risk. And then about 10, 15 years ago, at least at the World Bank, we've seen this shift toward absolute mainstreaming, and really resilience becoming part of everything from infrastructure planning to safety nets to macroeconomic management, with the realization that, you know, if our mandate is at the World Bank is to alleviate poverty, we cannot just focus on growth, just focus on bringing people out of poverty. We should really also look at people falling back into poverty. I always remember a report we published about 10 years ago called Shockwave, which looked at communities and followed communities for 10, 15, 20 years, and noticed that every year you may have 9, 10, 11% of any communities who actually make enough money, make it out of poverty. But then at the same time, on average, you'd have 8, 9, 10% of those communities falling back into poverty. And the margin between getting out of poverty and those falling back into poverty was literally 1 percentage point. And so, and most of the people falling back into poverty was because of shocks from natural disasters, from mostly from climate and other types of shocks. And so the need to really look at this aspect of resilience, allowing people, helping people to absorb shock rather than just focusing on people getting out of poverty. By the way, COVID-19 is a major shock, and I must say, sadly, we observed for the first time since World War II statistics on global poverty that shows that for the first time since World War II, we have an increase in global poverty, which is quite disconcerting. So, so just to say that resilience now is in every one of our program, and first and foremost in East Asia, which is particularly exposed. If you think about cities in East Asia, many, if not most of them, are along the coast. Most of them are exposed to floods. Most of them are in the tropics, will be exposed to heat wave. Most of them really are particularly vulnerable. Now, what is the value for us at the World Bank of organization like the City Network? You may think that the value of a network like that is that it helps us develop projects or find new opportunities, but it's actually quite different. When you're at the World Bank, despite the size of the program, you very quickly realize that you're only a little drop in the oceans of needs, right? There's no way we as the World Bank, even with all the other multilateral, can answer all the needs in the region. And in fact, World Bank project, MDB project are just demonstration. They're just trying to show that it's possible to address certain problem. They're never the core of everything a country or a city is doing or should be doing. So we need relay, and I think that's one thing that RCN provides. You mentioned 97 cities, $350 billion in annual budget from all of these cities. It's much more than the resources we invest, even though the World Bank, you may say, is the biggest funder of resilience, of climate change investment. I think this last year was about $10 to $15 billion. It's nothing compared to the investment needs and the investment that is actually taking place. So the more we can have relays, people who work with us in trying to push those ideas and to implement them, the more successful we can be. A second aspect that is also important is that we need to learn. We need to be able to bounce around ideas. We need to brainstorm. This is in fact what we have done over the last 6, 7, 8 months with the cities on the front line, right? When it started, nobody was ready to face the COVID-19 crisis. And on the way, we've all learned a lot. Not all sessions were perfect, or not all sessions were exactly on topic, but every session had something interesting. And at least personally, I learned tons out of these sessions. So I want to thank you for partnering with us on this program, and I hope we'll continue for the months to come. So it's a great pleasure to be part and be able to follow the network, and really wish you all the best for the years to come.
Thank you so much, Francis. I've definitely enjoyed co-hosting with you and also bringing the knowledge to cities, because this was demand driven from the start. And I think that that's what we continue to strive for and do more and more of as a city-led network. So with that, I want to turn to our last speaker on the panel, and also remind everyone that after this speaker, we will be moving to the networking session. So Neil Walmsley is from Arup, and Arup was one of the first movers in the resilience space in terms of really penning down a methodology on holistic resilience for cities, and one of our partners in doing so way back from the 100 Resilient Cities days until now. So would you be able to speak to, Neil, what you see as the demand in this region? Do cities really have the time? Are they asking to think about resilience as they're trying to scale up infrastructure projects? And what do you expect is on the horizon in terms of partnering on resilience work, or the possibility to actually mainstream it?
Thank you, Lauren. Good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, thanks for having me involved with this event. And it's great to almost be making our partnership real. We're not quite co-located in the office yet, but hopefully that'll be coming back very soon. So it's an interesting question. It was interesting listening to Mr. Koo earlier, talking about planning and how Singapore has thought deeply about long-term challenges, and the long-term challenges demonstrated by the example of the Marina Barrage, building resilience into projects that might have initially been conceived as problem solving, but actually taking the problem solving and adding much more value by building in resilience. And I think that that's the interesting point in time for the regional city agenda, is that most of the cities in Southeast Asia are still at a point of their evolution where their focus is on fixing operational day-to-day issues, whether that's air quality or flooding or road congestion, ability to move around. And so it's easy for the people that lead those cities to actually just get absorbed in projects that solve problems. And so for me, the step change is not about how the projects are conceived, but how the solutions are developed. And I think that the impact of 100 RC and the evolution towards now RCN is about having the profile and the network and the ability to demonstrate that maybe a little bit more money in the short term will result in projects that have much, much more value and for a very long time into the future. And so, as you mentioned, the City Resilience Index, which is something that Arup developed, and we were delighted when it was part of the 100 RC approach, gives this holistic view, but it's also a platform for understanding and collating information that can be shared across cities. And so that's, for me, that's the power. So looking forward, for me, the RCN opportunity and the opportunity for Arup to work closely with RCN, first of all, mutual credibility. We bring deep knowledge, deep technical understanding to your extensive network of cities, the capability to build upon that, and the capacity so that we don't end up collectively doing one project at a time, that there's actually a global network of people that can deliver projects alongside the ability to think about what the right answers might be. Critical to all of that, and go back to Grania's earlier comments, the network, the connections, the ability to bring together people with the same challenges. And hopefully for all of us, the likes of Francis and Yubin bringing in access to funding, access to investment, and access to people who might want to also invest. Because I think maybe the last thing for me is that this isn't just a public sector challenge. This is about the public sector being the facilitators to give everybody resilience in everything they do in their businesses. And you know, the people that suffered most in New York with Hurricane Sandy were the businesses that couldn't function because the city's infrastructure wasn't working for a few weeks. So it's not just a public sector problem, it's a global problem, it's a city's problem, it's about everyone working together. And we're very excited to be part of it. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Neil. I think the concluding comments that you made really eloquently wrap up what we're trying to do here, which is to point out that this is a systems issue, right? The private sector can't get to work if the public sector's infrastructure isn't working. And so while we know that many of these challenges are very serious, they're deep challenges, they also might not be technical challenges. They might be challenges that we have the technical solutions for, and partners like Arrow, partners like the World Bank may have seen. They might be problems that city has funding for or other national governments have funding for, but placing those bets on the right technologies at the right time is really critical in order to do this. And I think we struggle to prioritize because we might not have the right information at the right time. And so we really see our role in being here in Singapore as really making those connections and helping to propel urban resilience projects and investment opportunities from this base. And so with that, I really want to thank each and every one of the panelists for your comments, and then remind everyone that we will be moving to the networking part of this. And this is an active networking part, so please do not hang up, please stay on the line. There are 3 groups that we are forming, one on policy and planning, one on projects, and one on investments. And so we will be playing a video to conclude. While the video is playing, at the end, you will see a button that allows you to join one of those groups. When you click on it, please turn on your video and your mic. You will go into a virtual networking session where different members of our Resilient Cities Network team and members of the panel will be there waiting for you to have a deeper discussion on how we take all of these ideas forward. And with that, again, I just want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your partnership. This is just the beginning, and we're really looking forward to working with all of you for many years to come.